Hey, what's up guys? Today we're going to be talking about the new Abyss and strategies to beat it easily. This new Abyss is challenging but fair. It feels a lot less annoying than the last one, and a lot of the difficulties of this Abyss can be sort of played around by building your team efficiently or by actually knowing like strategies to beat certain enemies. So that's what we're going to be talking about. And this video is mainly going to be focusing on floors 11 and 12, but 9, 10, 11, and 12 all changed. All those floors changed for patch 1.6. I will be going over all of them briefly, but once again, mainly 11 and 12. I'll be giving you guys a bunch of different strategies that all work well, some example teams, a lot of 4-star characters in the forefront, because I know not everyone has 5 stars, so I'll try to talk specifically about 4-star characters while still mentioning the power of some 5 stars like Venti. With that being said, I want to try to keep this video relatively short, so I just want to jump right into it. If you're new, I want you to know that I stream most nights on Twitch, link in the description if you're interested, and with that being said, let's go. So first of all, I just want to include a brief summary of the changes. 9, 10, 11, and 12 all got changed. 9 and 10 are basically the same thing, except with slightly different enemies. Like as you guys can see, you still mainly need Pyro for all the cryo enemies, but they added specific enemies, and in floor 10, you'll notice that there's now an Abyss Herald, which is kind of annoying, and there is also an Abyss Lector in the other chamber. So while floor 10 and 9 are both generally DPS checks and team comp checks, which can usually be brute forced with good artifacts, there's a few enemies that you do need to know how to clear, like the Abyss Herald, the Abyss Lector, and I've even heard some people struggle with the Cryo Hypostasis. And so first of all, I want to say that we will be talking about how to clear the shields for the Lector and the Herald in the next section, because they do appear in every single floor past 10, so 10, 11, and 12. And there are some very efficient ways to clear them with only 4-star characters. That being said, if you are struggling with the Cryohypostasis in 10, or really any of the enemies, there's a lot of good pyro units that can help you not only break the cryo shields, but let's say for the Cryohypostasis, you can just build a pyro DPS. And everyone has one, right? Because Shangling is free. You can use someone like Shangling, someone like Diluc, Yanfei, whatever, for this Cryohypostasis, and just bring a good pyro support for like the other half, and you'll be fine. So before we move on, 9 and 10 are basically pyro supports that are needed, and bringing the corresponding element for, let's say, these Fatuis, right, for the shields. You do want to make sure you bring whatever you need to counter the shields, and notably for the Hydro Gunner, try to speed kill him first, because he does heal the other enemies, and his shield is also very annoying to kill, even if you do have Electro. Also, keep in mind that a lot of the things from the old Abyss carry over, especially for 9 and 10, like the Sheer Cold debuff, and also keep in mind that the Cryo Abyss Mages do have the same aura as last time, like those prisons that can summon under you, that you do have to make sure to dodge. 11 and 12 are where things get a bit more complicated, actually mainly 12. 11 is basically just Swirl being absolutely broken. My friend and math guy Zajef cleared it on a Sucrose that had like no artifacts, and I'm pretty sure a level 1 weapon, because the swirl damage is increased by 300% and the AoE is even increased, so anemo characters become absolutely broken. I'll play some footage on screen now. You guys can see like whatever anemo character you're using will destroy it. And obviously a character like Venti is broken if you have him, but while he is a 5-star, you don't need him. A character like Sucrose does the job perfectly well, and even the main character can be good because they can be an anemo unit. So let's say you want an anemo on each half, you can run Sucrose on one half, main character on the other, and you just focus on your swirl damage. A couple things to note regarding swirl is that, first of all, it scales off of your level and off of elemental mastery. So the most important thing for swirl, for transformative reactions, is usually your level. So if you are struggling with this floor, do be sure to level your anemo characters so that their swirl does more damage. On top of that, and my Venti's not really built right now, so let's go to Sucrose. But usually you do want to be stacking elemental mastery on your pieces for swirl characters because it does scale off of that, so that's very important. And you want to be sure to level them up. That being said, in the clips you guys will see me destroy with Sucrose, right? But my Sucrose is very low level with basically no talents. So it's definitely possible, you know, low level and even pretty low investment. But if you do want your swirl to do more damage, be sure to level your character up and give them elemental mastery artifacts. Also, obviously, Verdescent Vendor increases your swirl damage, so be sure to run that. Now, regarding the specific enemies of floor 11, you guys will see that in the first half, there's a lot more enemies in the second half. So if you're going to bring one clumper, it should be in the first half. But generally speaking, you probably want an anemo on both sides anyways. For the second half, it's just a bunch of Fatuis. You don't need the specific elements to break the shields because anemo is so broken. Once again, I literally just use Sucrose and main character, or Sucrose and Venti, and just destroy everything. But if you do struggle to kill them fast enough, if they get their shields up, you can bring these specific elements to break the shield. So obviously like Hydro Cryo here, and then Pyro and a Claymore on the second half, and then something to destroy the Hydro Gunner. So once again, I recommend just rushing these Fatuis down with Swirl. It's really not that difficult. You just apply an element to infuse your Swirl. So that's why I usually Bennett ult first, then you use your anemo characters, and you should kill them all very fast. For the third chamber, there's 2 big enemies on the first half, which can be annoying, but you can still swirl spam. Now for the second half, there's actually both of the Abyss enemies enemies, the Lector and the Herald, the two enemies with those big shields that can be annoying to break if you don't know how. There are some very efficient ways to break these, and this is kind of where the two floors overlap. So now, instead of just talking about floor 11, we're going to talk about how to break these two shields in general. Before we do that though, I want to say that for floor 11 specifically, you can brute force everything with an emo. I'll play some footage on screen, but even with just Sucrose's like auto attacks and stuff, you can actually break the shields in time with just an emo. I made the mistake in this clip of not having a shield, so I kind of got destroyed while I was doing it. I took a lot of damage, but you can just run Diona for a shield and then Sucrose to break the shields. That being said, the most efficient way to break these shields are with specific elements, specific characters. And that's what I want to talk about because it can be really fast for floor 11, right, to bring the corresponding elements, but especially for floor 12, where an emo doesn't work as well, and you really want the correct solutions. In order to get all the stars in floor 12, in order to 9-star it, you do need to like speedrun the shield. So first of all, for the Abyss Lector, this guy, as you can see, has an electro shield when he reaches low HP. And in order to break this, I highly recommend running Pyro. You can spam Pyro characters' abilities and break it relatively fast. Characters with low internal cooldowns like Yanfei or even Xiangling's Pyronado paired with Bennett spamming E can destroy it quite fast. But the best method that I found, and I talked about this in my last video, is TF Bennett. Now this can be on a support Bennett. You can have +0 artifacts, and I think I have some. Yeah, like my circlet's +0. It doesn't really matter what your Bennett's on. Ideally, you still want energy recharge on the sands, but apart from that, if you put him on Thundering Fury, your E's cooldown will be literally 1 second if you use it in your burst. The reason for that, and I don't want to repeat myself from the last video, but basically you get a lot of cooldown reduction from your E already when you're in your burst from your talents. And on top of that, Thundering Fury gives you more. So every time you proc Overload, your elemental skill cooldown will be decreased by 1 second. And so it's just a very spammable ability that you can use every second to destroy the Lector's shields in seconds. So Bennett alone is more than capable of destroying the shield fast enough. It's usually what I do. But if you're struggling with an Abyss Lector's shield in particular, you can run other characters. For example, Jean can self-swirl and make it go faster if you have her. But even other pyro characters like Xiangling can work. You can drop Xiangling's both of her abilities, Guoba and Pyronado, while your Bennett is on field shredding the shield, and you'll get it down very fast. Next up, let's talk about the Abyss Herald. This guy is a Hydro Shield, and usually the two ways used to destroy it are either Cryo or Electro. In the previous Abyss, I basically only recommended Cryo because it would freeze, and it still does, and it's what I recommend, but Electro is a bit more viable since there's only one of them instead of two, so freezing them together isn't really an issue anymore. However, I still recommend running Cryo to freeze the character and like break his shield very fast with a character like Chongyun. And so Chongyun is the best here for pretty obvious reasons. You press his E, your attacks become cryo. The cooldown is pretty low because it's actually 5 seconds. Like it's up for 10 seconds. And so it effectively has a cooldown of 5. And what you can do is you press E on Chongyun, you swap to a sword or spear user, and then they can just keep freezing him and keep breaking the shield. The reason you want to swap characters though to a sword or spear user is because not only does Chongyun attack relatively slowly with his claymore, but also because he's a claymore user, he will shatter the Lector and make him unfrozen, which is not optimal. So yeah, basically press E on Chongyun and then swap to a sword or a spear user. So Chongyun's the character I recommend, but he's not the only solution. Other cryo characters can work, and from my testing, Electro actually works relatively fine. So other than just breaking the shields, for floor 12, there's a few tips I can give you guys. First of all, 12-1 is pretty straightforward. It's 2 Geo Vishaps, so you just want to clear them as fast as possible. It's more of an artifact / team comp check, but there's a lot of powerful 4-star units that can clear it very, very fast. For example, Xiangling can destroy them with her Pyronado if you are vaporizing, and a character like Beidou is amazing against exactly 2 enemies because of the way her ult works and bounces. So running a team comp with Beidou official is definitely a good idea if you can make it work. 12-2 is also pretty straightforward, but the first half has a lot of enemies. So be sure to bring a Clumper and a Nemo unit to 12-2 first half if you can. Someone like Sucrose or Venti or even the main character can be great to clump all of these treasure hoarders together and then be able to destroy them with whatever your DPS is. For the second half, it's not that many enemies. It's 2 Geo Vishaps at the start into a Stonehide Lava Churl. And one tip I can give you guys for floor 12-2 and 12-3, and shout out to Zajeff77 for this one, is running a freeze comp. Freeze comps are especially good in the second half of floor 12 because you can just freeze the enemies, especially the Sonics in place, because they can escape, they like dig around and just run away from you. It's very annoying. And a freeze comp's also just good in 12-3, so very good for the second half of floor 12 because it's efficient against all the enemies you have to face. There's not that many, and it's good to keep them in place with freeze. And you can also destroy the Abyss Herald's shield very easily. Also, keep in mind a few things for the first half. There is a Cryo Siphon Mage, so you do want to be able to deal with that. Either a bunch of Pyro to break the shield, or you can kill the flies that spawn around her to remove the shield. You can also speedrun her if you want. Like, as she spawns in the north corner, you can just start attacking her instantly like I do with my Shao, to clear her as fast as you can. And also keep in mind there is a cryo debuff on this floor. It applies enemies with cryo, so if you do want to remove that, having something like a pyro character can be a smart idea. So to summarize, I highly recommend an Anemo character on the first half, and the second half you just want characters that can DPS a few enemies very fast. Notably, a freeze comp works very well. Now for 12.3, apart from the Lectors and the Herald that we talked about how to break their shields, there are Abyss Mages. So for the Pyro and Cryo and Hydro, you can bring the corresponding elements for their shields, or you can just use Anemo, like use a character like Shao, Sucrose, MC, something like that, and then just passively swirl and break their shields while you're fighting the Lector. That works for me as a Shao main because I just spam plunges and it breaks everything, but even with a character like Sucrose, you can make that work. That being said, you can just bring like a Hydro character to break the Pyro Abyss Mage shield, and same thing for Cryo and Hydro mages. And just through my experience, I usually can brute force the first half with just an emo, but especially for the second half, I usually bring the elements to pop the Abyss Mage shields. And so it can depend on your team comp, but generally speaking, I would either bring Hydro and Pyro to remove the shields, or a Nemo if you're good at swirling and managing the shields. And so a couple of things I want to specify overall. You guys can see that a Nemo, especially past the, well, with the 1.6 changes, the buffs to transformative reactions, notably Swirl, Anemo is really, really good. Yes, in floor 11 it's broken, but even in the other floors, like having a character to clump all these enemies, and same thing for 10 and 9, is very, very useful. And so I highly recommend building at least one Anemo character like Sucrose to help you greatly with the Abyss. Apart from that, I tried to include all the tips that I found helpful for this Abyss. I really like it. It seems a bit easier than the last one in my opinion, and a lot more fair. While some chambers might be more difficult, I believe it's a lot more fair than the last Abyss because it's less of like a Ganyu check, like the old Abyss 11 sort of was, especially with the Hydro ley line that was extremely annoying, and the zoo with a bunch of ducks in 12.2, and I would show you footage of the old zoo, but I'm traumatized from it. So overall, I actually like this Abyss. It's challenging, but there's a lot of like brain power going into how to counter specific enemies, right? So things you need to know, which I covered in this video. And then there's also the team building and artifact aspect of it without it being too frustrating, apart from a few enemies that are somewhat annoying, like the Abyss Herald with the Cryo Mage that can freeze you sometimes. But overall, I do like this Abyss, and I hope that the tips I gave you guys were helpful. So that's about it for me. I hope this video was informative. I wasn't sure if I wanted to make this initially, and then I tried to make it short, but I feel like I've been recording all day, so I hope I kept the video somewhat short. I hope this video helped you, and if there's anything I want to add, it will be in a pinned comment, so be sure to look out for that in case anything changes. That being said, I wish you guys the best of luck in 9-starring this new Abyss. Be sure to sub if you're new, because most people forget. Follow me on Twitch if you want to, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.